Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Abandoned Forest. As always, if I do something and you don't know how, or you see something and I haven't explained it yet, please ask questions on the FSUK or in the YouTube comments, and I will add that to my tutorial to-do list. Right now, we are at field definitions. I said that I was gonna show you guys how to add fields for about, I don't know, like 10 episodes now, and well, the tutorial series isn't even that long. Okay, that's exaggerating. Let's just actually discuss field definitions then, instead of talking about how long I've said that I would do them. The very first thing that you need to look at is this field transform group. Now, if you're using the starter map, it'll look like this. If you're using another map, it might be named something different. The names under the fields are not important. However, you're looking for something with this transform, and it'll have this on create field definition, on create user attribute attached to it. That tells the game engine, hey, look under here for your fields. So again, these names aren't important. I could name this field, I could name this field 25, or I could just name it 25 or 1 or ONE. And the game knows to look at the first transform group. That's just the way that this specific thing works. You don't need to yeah, I'll just stop there. But you can get in trouble with renaming certain things. They do need to be certain names and in certain orders. In this one, the order is important, the name is not. So let's just discuss fields. And if you look, okay, so I guess the very first step is, now if you're using the starter map, I should say you'll see like something like 15 fields there. I forget how many. I deleted them all. I like to only work one at a time and then duplicate them. One other thing is I'll discuss that when I actually get there. But for now, the very first thing you need to do with fields is go to up there, scripts, FF17. And well, I guess at first I should say I did it, but I didn't say it. You need to click on the fields transform group, the one that you have this field definition on create on. So let's do scripts, and then we want to run maps and toggle render field areas. And now you get to see the field that I have already done. How this is going to work is I am going to give you a basic rundown of this field. If I didn't already say this, I'm going to give you a basic rundown of this field, and then we're going to go create our own together, just to kind of reinforce it a little bit. But I think it's good to understand things first. So if you look inside here, first of all, like I already said, you're looking for this, right? And then the first child of that field group, it's going to have some user attributes. So let's just go through those first. The first user attribute that you are looking at here is field area. Don't worry about that. You can set that manually, but it's easier to go up here when you're all done. Just like we toggle rendered the field area, you can click on that field and go to scripts, FF17 maps, and then set field sizes. And that'll automatically calculate based on these boxes the field sizes. However, since I have some of them overlapping, I think that makes it a little inaccurate. So you can always go in and manually set that field size area if you want to. But that gives you a good rough idea. And then, of course, that's also going to determine the price. Speaking of price, if you go down here to this user attribute, jumping around just a little bit, this sets the price scale for the field. 0. 0.2 is roughly realistic. 0.2 to, I'd say like something like 0.15 to 0.3. Somewhere in that range is going to give you a realistic price scale for fields. So if you want to set them up at a realistic price level, not the stupid, ridiculous, fake, inflated prices that the Giants map have. If you play maps on hard or more realistic, or you're setting it up for that type of people like me, or you want the prices to be similar to the West Coast, well, use the price scale of 0.2. NPC index, you might not have that on your own. To add, let's go through adding a user attribute real quick, because we have not yet. Well, I guess I could have just, you know what, let's just do it. Okay, so string, no, sorry, it is an integer. So it is NPC index. And what this does is this is going to make this field. Why didn't it? Oh, there it is. Yeah. So this is going to set the field to, you know what, let's change it to 5. And it's going to set that NPC up based on this field, based on the index in the, I believe this is in the data, somewhere in the default Giants folder. Actually, I don't even know if this is visible. It would be nice if it was so you could configure it, but whatever. We can look at that later if it gives us an error. But anyway, I don't believe that is, yeah, configurable. I think that's in the default Giants folder. I should probably know that if I'm doing this tutorial, but it's an insignificant thing, really. You actually don't need it and it will randomly assign an NPC player for this field. It's just nice if you want your entire map owned by one farmer, for example, you can do that and set it up all as the same farmer. So that'll be fine. You actually don't even need it. And then a few other things like owned by player. Now, if you're using the Bullet Bill starter map, field number 1 will have all of these except for that NPC player index. The other two are Booleans, owned by player and field job usage. This sets the starting state of the field when you first start a new save game. After you start the new save game, then the save game folder will take over with your, I think it's economy.xml file. That'll store the state of all of your fields. But initially, when you start a new map, it will be determined whether or not you own it if that box is checked. And then field job usage, this is only going to be valid if this is unchecked. So if it's an unowned field, then this comes into play. And what this does is it basically determines this is the field missions, right? So this is whether or not you can come up to a field and run a mission. And it also determines whether or not it's the same thing. It also determines whether or not the field texture is automatically generated. So if we have that box checked, right, this field, based on how I want my map, I do not want that field texture on this map. I don't want you to be able to do missions on this field. I want this to be like a rundown field a little bit. I still got, I might put some bushes along. Well, I still got a lot of detail to add, but the middle of the field's going to look something like this, kind of like it's gone to seed. I think I need to add a few bigger trees over on the edge there that kind of are running in here. But I wanted to give you the look that you like. It's an abandoned forest map. So this used to be a nice pasture, but it's kind of gone to seed. I think I might put a few wild crops in there or something like that, or maybe a little bit of field texture intermixed. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not totally done there, but this is whatever. That's just kind of my starting idea. So I do not want this checked. However, let's check that row. Well, you know what? Let's do that for our other field. And then I'll show you how that works. So let's get on over here. And I guess I should say real quick, how I work is in the Bullet Bill starter map, he has like fields 1 through 15 already set up for you. I don't do that because I just think I like to do one at a time, and then I know the fields that I have are basically done. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually duplicate this field. If you think of the parent transform group largely as an organization tool, then keep them all at 0, 0, 0 because it makes it easier to move things around on your map for organizational and sanity purposes, but also specifically for fields. There's a reason why you do that is because it allows you to, cut and paste field definitions into a new field without having to reposition everything. So here we go. We are going to make this, got a nice little tree there. I actually don't know how that will show up in game. That was just in a little experiment. Yeah, see, just like I said, I don't know everything. It's all about experimentation. And now that I look at it, that might be a little bit too low in the middle. I'm probably going to want to raise up that field in the middle, but we'll just see how it looks in game. For now, let's just let's Control B and set that there, move it down to the ground just a little bit. And then the field map indicator, let's set that up next. That's going to be right in the middle of the field. So I Control B and set that one there. And then finally, what we're going to do is let's actually delete all those other field definitions. I like to set them all, kind of like that. My very first one, I like to make a small square or a big square, some type of square, not a parallelogram. And if you're doing this yourself, it's, just in case you need a little help, the easiest way to do it is set the corner. Let's say I want this square because I'm making, so up here, for example, let's say I'm making this a corner of the map, let's say I'm making it here, right? And let's see, right about there. So how you make this a square is, let me just adjust it a little bit. Yeah, that's really sloped. I think I'm going to change that around a little bit. And then, like I say, just a disclaimer, I do not have detail on the edge of the forest yet. I'm looking into getting that done, but right now we're doing fields, so stop talking. So the easiest way to set up the corner is if you look at corner 2, right? Corner 2 is going to be up there somewhere, but at 0 x because it's relative to this. So we have 0 left to right, but it goes 50 in that direction. And then over here we have this corner is going to be 35 because that is the distance from that other corner, right? But it's the same. It's going to be at, well, actually, it's off a little bit. Let's make it at 50. So if you can actually, how to explain this? So it's a parallelogram, right? I could set corner two instead of being up there. I could set corner two. Actually, they were the same. I could set corner two. Let's actually grab this X coordinate, and I could set corner two down here. So let's just actually move it so you can see what's happening. So if I set corner two down there, look at that. It is a 0. So this time I want the Z coordinates as a 0 because it's relative to that point, our parent, right? And then I want this one set to whatever that other value was up there, the X value for up there. And so now you always look to kind of adjust the size with field 3. Now I can't go this way anymore. However, I can go this way with corner 3. You always look to adjust corner 3. Corner 3 is kind of your length adjuster, and then corner 2 is your how you set it up. So if I want to set it up so I go this way based on that pivot, then I put corner 2 down here. Or if I want to go that way with it, lengthwise or height, whatever your perspective is, then I would put corner 2 up there, and then I would be allowed to adjust that direction. So that's how you kind of do that for now, actually. And the reason I do squares originally, let's just start out with something like that. Let's start out with a 10 by 30, 10 by 28 something. So 10 by 30 roughly. So that's the square. So what we're going to do now is I like to leave that alone. Don't touch it. And I'm going to duplicate it. And you'll see why I leave that. And this is just the way that I do fields. You do not have to do fields this way. One other disclaimer is that talking with Bullet Bill, Giants has told him, and so this was on a forum, I believe. Giants has told him that they recommend no more than 5 field definitions per field. Now, that might be for consoles. I wasn't really clear if that's for a computer or not. I've had as many as like 50 or 100 on one field, and that's on a map where I have 100 fields. Granted, I have a pretty good computer, so I might not be able to tell, but from what I've seen in my experiments, it doesn't make one bit of difference for the computer how many field definitions you have. Obviously, if you have something like 1,000, if you're getting into doing calculus and making your corners perfectly round, that would be a pretty probably a bad deal. But if you just have a few corners, that's what I use this original square for. So we're going to say that this is the main. And the reason I do this is because if you go in game and need to adjust something later, like I said, you don't have to rename them, but it makes adjusting a lot easier. So let's just, we're actually going to have to, this field is really not square at all. We're going to have to go something like that. And we want to cover as much ground as possible. So something like that, I think, is good. And then we're going to have to do one more main and just Control D to duplicate that. And let's go on over. And like I said, this one I'm just going to leave it as the same name. It does not really matter. Let's set up the corner first and go up here and there. And then we're just going to tilt it that way a little bit. And then this one's going to kind of get funky because what we're going to do is, and it's always good to do overhead. One thing to note is I could do this at a height of all the way up there, like 250, and it does not matter for the field texture, right? It will cover basically a top-down version of your map coordinates of these field definitions. So that's something that you don't really have to think about. Let's go like, whoops, we accidentally clicked away from that. So that was 2. 2's pretty close. Let's look at 3 now and bring 3 in here just a little bit more. And we're actually going to have to shorten it up a little bit so we don't stick out on that end. And, yeah, see, so now our first corner looks like it was a little bit too close to that tree line. Or we could just, should we just make it there? Let's actually make it there because I think that, yeah, let's just make it there. And if you want a perfect field, you're going to have to do a little forestry. That's kind of the name of the game anyway. That's, you know what, we could always just move that tree back. That's a little bit of a big tree to be this close to the edge. Anyway, so let's just move it back a little bit. Okay, so there we go. And now the reason why I did the thing that, now I have my huge tree group. Let's minimize that. And so the reason I leave this square is because this makes it really easy to do some nice smooth corners. So let's say I want to do a corner from here and here, and I want this kind of nice and smooth. So what I do is I place the corner to this corner basically. Now, like I said before, this is going to throw off your field size, and it's also not perfectly optimized. So if you want a map that's perfectly optimized for consoles, don't do it this way. But I like to do it this way because, yeah. So anyway, here's what I said. Like, I need to be able to adjust the height on this, not the corner. So we need to flip the location of this corner basically to over there. And now I'll be able to adjust the height, so to speak, if you see what I was trying to do. So let's do 10, and that needs to be 0 because we want to add a square. And then so this is at a 10, and then now we can adjust the X, right, going up and down this way. So I want it just to the very edge. And now we're going to duplicate this corner and keep on going around the, actually, is that right? We need to go a little bit further. That's why it helps to do top-down view most of the time. Okay, so, and now we're going to duplicate that square and keep on going. So here we go. So this is a going to the corner again. So we want it at the very corner, as close to the corner as we can get. Zooming in sometimes helps. Also remember the plus minus on your number pad. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, it changes the navigation speed. So if you have it all the way at 1, it helps the same mouse movement cover a smaller area so you can zoom in properly. So now let's, actually, I like to keep in mind typically around 5. So now that we have that adjusted, let's continue on with our corner. And I just need to tilt it a little bit so that we can get that. And okay, so that the height covers it pretty good. Let's do the same thing again. So duplicate and keep on going. And so like I said, this is not going to be well optimized for consoles, but for computers, I haven't noticed any problem. And I don't, from what I've seen, I don't really think it matters. I just wouldn't go overboard here. Like I said, don't have 1,000 corners. If you have 20 or 30, I've never seen a problem or performance hit with that number. Now, one thing to note is it kind of, it has it out there as a level plane. So if you zoom down, it kind of looks like it's open, but always remember to zoom in an overhead view. And yes, that is covered. You don't need to worry about that. So what we need now is we are looking to continue rotating around this corner and just keep on going. So let's keep going. And we're going to rotate a little bit more, try to hit it at an expected amount. And so, I made a comment on calculus, and what you're doing now is basically, well, it's kind of how calculus works. Well, not really, but calculus breaks down and, well, kind of. It's kind of the same principle. Calculus breaks down, a curve into infinitely small little pieces or chunks. And so that if you look at it up close, you're actually taking a square and fitting it to a line and calculating the area underneath that. That's kind of how calculus works, and we're kind of doing the same process here. And that's why this always makes me think of calculus. So let's go one more. Did I duplicate that? No. So what we want to do now is duplicate this, and I think we might be able to finish this field. So let's do corner 2 right on top of, well, I guess I could just drag it out. Let's do corner 2 right about there. And then for corner 3, let's drag it all the way over and see how far we can get. And right about there. And is that too far? That's a little bit too far, but we also want to make sure that we still have that corner covered. Looks like we're good there. And actually, there we go. So if we do that, that is not too much overlap, and those corners should be pretty good and not ugly. And this is basically the rough shape of the field I want. If I wanted to, I could go and refine that a little bit more. I could also, let's just do one more for good measure. So this is not a square. Let's name this as random. I don't want to start duplicating the wrong thing and get off. So let's grab another random one because this is going to be kind of a custom thing here. And actually, I should have grabbed a square, actually. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's just, well, yeah, it does matter. Let's delete that. And what we want is we actually want a square. And the reason we want the square is because, well, you'll see. What we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we are going to go Control B to right there. And then let's flip this around. Whoops. Clicked on something else. Let's rotate that around just a little bit. And I just want a little bit more of an angle there. And now let's change the height of this, so to speak. And there we go. So now we have roughly the shape of a field. And let's go back and collapse this and look at our field. So what I want is I do not want this owned by player. I want field job usage allowed, and you'll see what this does. I guess real quick, I could show you this. See how this is 1.33? So go up here to scripts and map and set field size. And then if you look, it will have changed the field size for field number 2 right there. So now let's save our game. And remember those checkboxes. Let's hit save and let's go explore this field in game. We have a problem with a script. Let's exit out and see what that is. So let's hit Q. And okay, so that is a problem. I don't know what that problem was. I don't think it has anything to do with what we just did. I hadn't been, well, actually it should, because I hadn't done it. Oh, you know what? I have it could be related to the train. I was in the middle of setting up my train when I decided I had time to do this tutorial. Let's look real quick. I bet you. Let's click and go to the first error. Oops. You got to spell right. O-R. There we go. So failed to open. So it failed to open our train system, right? And invalid spline index. And then loading on create. And then we had I bet you that is, yeah. It's a bad argument. See, why is it saying station crane? So do we not have the data S running? Why is it saying station crane? I don't know if we did something to the crane or not, but sometimes errors are a little bit confusing. So just go back and undo what you did. In my case, I was working on the train, which was a starter map. I'll cover this in a tutorial as well. Right now, we're going to say this on create. We're just going to delete those. So now it's not going to try to create the train system. Let's hit save, and then we're going to load. I was right in the middle of doing that like I said. So let's hit start again and see what happens. All right, here we go. Let's bring up the console to check, and there we go. No error. So that's a lesson. That is why you always, I know I preach this a lot, always go into the game and check for errors after you do something. Because if I would have stopped that project, done something else, come back to it, maybe I even moved the crane, I might have thought that I had a problem with my crane because I am using, a few parts with the crane. So always, always, always get into the map and, whoops, I don't want that tractor. Let's get the new one. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Let's start this baby up and let's get off to, let's get off to the, I hate not using drive control. Let's get out there to the field and we're just going to take a look and you will see what happened. I guess I could run actually a lot faster than, this shows you a little bit of the preview of the path that I'm doing. Remember, this is just overgrowth on the farm. I'm going to have a few bushes over there, but over here, I'm definitely need to add a lot of growth and bushes underneath these. Whoa, that's a road that I was working on so that I wouldn't forget to delete it. And here we go. So I still got a couple big trees in the road. If there was a small trees, I think that could be fun. So there's the first field, and that's what it. Actually, I haven't really seen that in game. I'm still working on it. Let's go GST and toggle flight and J and Q. Let's look at this a little bit because I actually don't know what it looks like in game. I think that it almost looks like a Christmas tree farm. I don't like the looks of that. I don't know. I think I need some dirt texture in there, something to make it look more like it used to be a field and it's overgrown with trees. Maybe I'll put crops, kind of that grew wild or something out there. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna work. That needs some refinement. And of course, at the edge, I need to add some more refinement there so that it actually looks like the edge of a field. But here we go. We got Robbie's road pack that we're driving on. It's a little bit buried, but I wanted a little bit of something, but also give you that bumpiness. And it does look a little bit open right now, but remember, I don't have any underbrush. When I fill this in with some underbrush, it's going to look a lot tighter than it is right now. And then if it doesn't, I'll still fill it in with some more trees. Okay, so there's our log we have to roll over, and I like that. I think I might add a few more of those. I didn't actually know if that would work, honestly. So here we go. This is our field. It gave it a random type, right? And let's go up here and see if, okay, so no missions are available. Oh, we got to move our equipment. Let's actually just move our tractor back a little bit. That looks like, I don't know, that might be a little bit, actually, it kind of looks, I don't know if that looks sloped enough or not. Let's actually start this mission and see which way the vehicles spawn. So, you know what? I'll answer your question right here. Okay, that is not good. Why did the harvester spawn on top of... All right, so I guess I'll show you this. I did not know that before, that if you set the field by trigger in the field or on the field, apparently it tries to put the harvester on top of the header. And that's as close as I can figure. The other thing that I figured out is I actually looked it up myself. Well, not really. By showing you what it did, the field job spawn direction, it's not an actual angle. It basically places this, it determines where you want the thing to start. So for example, when I had it at 0, the combine started down here. And when I had it at 90, like I do now, the combine starts all the way up there. So it's basically where things start spawning relative to the actual buy trigger. So that's something you can play with yourself. And then, of course, the field buy trigger itself determines the rotation. So right now, if I was to, well, let's just exit out of the game and I will show you. If I were to click on the field buy trigger and flip things around, which is what I definitely want to do for this field, now it'll spawn things facing the field there. So that should be a little bit better for everybody. And I think that we are done here. So let's save. And what I want to show you now is if you want to make this field a painted... So say you want to start out the game with some crops in your field and you want to own the field. If you set the field to own, well then those crops are not going to grow because like I said, the mission system will only go if this box is unchecked. And the mission system is the same as what generates that texture. So one way to circumvent that is if you want to check that to owned and you don't care about that if this is checked to owned. But let's just do this real quick. And now what we want to do is we actually want to exit out of our map all the way. So it was save game number 3. Let's look to copy the fruit density and cultivator density. Actually, before we do this, what we want to do is we want to always make a backup copy. So let's go into our actual starter map. And you can make a backup copy of the entire thing. But right now, the only thing we're adjusting is this folder. So let's copy this folder, put it on our desktop. And this is just in case we mess up this part. Remember, you want to make regular backups of the entire map in case you mess up something royally. But for now, we just want to grab this cultivator density and fruit density, copy those, and paste them over the current values in the map. And now you're going to see what this will do. This is also, I discussed this in a recent tutorial on the West Coast. This is actually also how you change things on your map, or maybe if someone creates a new save game and you want your crops growing still, or your current state of your game, this is kind of how you update things if you start a new save game. Anyway, I won't get into that too much, but let's no, we don't want to restart the game. What am I thinking? What am I doing? We want to open up our map and you will see the changes that we made to the map. And this will give us that, what was that, barley or wheat? I forget which one it was, but it'll give us that texture for that crop out. Look at this. There we go. So it wasn't there before, but here it is. And now we know where the crop will actually grow. So if we wanted to, we could go here and select some terrain detail and just make it slightly bigger around the edges, just to give it a little bit more, to make it look a little bit better. I think that is something that we would probably want to do. But you don't have to worry now about doing the entire field. You just go around the border and it's pretty quick. And like I said, you have some nice corners based on the circle up there. So that is a way that you can do it. Okay, so let's so yeah, I won't go around the well, I guess I might as well. I'm thinking about making a few of the viable fields pastures, like little meadows. And actually, I don't think I want to do that here. I know somewhere else that I want to do that, and it's not going to be here. So let's just go on around, and there we go. Okay, so like I said, I need to add a lot of undergrowth and stuff on the edges of this forest, but we have completed our little field here. And anyway, I think that should cover fields. Like I said, the next thing I'm doing is getting the train set up, and I will do a tutorial on that. I'm just working on getting the spline set up first. Actually, before I forget, we don't need the navigation mesh anymore. So let's get rid of that. Yeah, so like I said, I'm working on getting the spline set up for the train. As soon as I get the spline finished, then I will show you how to set up the train on your map. And the first one I'll show you is the train that you're going to drive, and then the second one I'll show you is the automatic train running around the map along the edges that I'm going to have. A few other things I added. You can see that I added some background, a little more mountains, and I think that'll give us, so it's a little bit of a kind of like a rocky thing, and then it goes into the full mountains. I don't know. Perhaps I'll get rid of those because they actually don't really match. Although I could always change my texture to kind of match the mountains. I could always change the texture on the actual mountain itself and make it a little bit more of the same rock color instead of the black. Perhaps that's what I'll do. I think I might do that and see how that looks. Otherwise, I think I'll just delete it because I actually really like this thing. This, off in the distance, this mountain backdrop actually looks pretty cool when you have a sky texture there. It actually really does look like a skyline of mountains. I think they did a really good job with that. Anyway, I think that should cover, like I said, that covers this tutorial. And yeah, I won't say goodbye again other than that time. So thanks for tuning in and have a great day, which is kind of also like saying the word that I said I wasn't going to say. So whatever. I'm done.